one of the things I found very interesting is he actually created volume textures in his game engine. Volumetric textures. I've never seen that in a game engine before. Okay, this is a very, very unique shader, and gives a very, very cool effect. I wish I could show you guys this in 3D, but I just don't have the resources right now to pull up this example. But the man's a genius when it comes to this kind of thing. Read his articles and you'll understand what I'm talking about. He's very good. Now, one last thing I do want to go over. I've actually been sort of playing a game called Tales of Pirates recently. In all honesty, the game is crap. There is one redeeming quality of it, though. Is the graphics. Yes, this is its website. One of the worst websites I've ever seen. I hate these things. Advertisements everywhere with a little bit of news in this kind of little area here. Oof. Anyway, what's really unique about it is its graphic style. And I'll actually take you through that in just a minute and give you my personal opinion on that and why I personally want to use, why I happen to like it so much. I have a couple of ideas in terms of style that I want to do for a couple of future games, mostly in the White Wolf universe if you've ever played White Wolf at all, specifically vampires. Now, when I'm speaking of graphic style, I was not talking about this. This is very cartoony. We've seen it before in a dozen different Asian MMOs that are all free or very, very cheap by the month or whatnot. Fly being a good example. I've played a couple of them in the past. All of them are generally pretty bad. This is not what I was talking about in terms of graphics. But I will show you what I'm speaking of. So as we actually enter. See, it's just too cartoony. This isn't what I'm speaking of. Okay, this is a bit more what I'm speaking of. We have these cartoony characters. They're just too cartoony. They don't fit in with the environment by any means at all. What is very unique about this, though, is the artwork and artistic style of the game itself in the environment. It's fairly rich in detail, even though it's extremely low poly. See these trees and things like that? They keep everything really low poly, but they keep everything very scattered around as well. You have all these items around, and the environment itself is fairly detailed. It's also very bright, very colorful. Most of these games are very happy-like and have this general color scheme. And in general, look at this, and it's just a fun environment, to play some sort of game in. Here's what I have with this. Here's the problem I have with this. It's all scattered around. You look at these trees and things like that, and they look like they've just kind of evenly placed out. There's a little concern about their placement, but with this graphic style and the fact that these are all so low poly, you have the potential of actually creating very, very lush and rich environments that just aren't being expressed in MMOs today. It's not that big of an issue anymore, especially with the graphics cards. This plays very, very well on a 6000 series NVIDIA card. Very well. I'm running this on an 8800. These are the new graphics coming out. Start programming a game today, and everyone's going to have, the 8000 or 7000 series NVIDIA card. ATI equivalents, of course. We don't have the problem with poly count so much anymore. It used to be a big deal. It just isn't anymore. So, we can increase the poly count, not by creating more detailed models, but by putting more on the screen at one time, making these environments far more rich, far more lush, and more enjoyable to be in. Again, the character models do not fit in with the environment. They're not 2D, they're not 3D either. They're like kind of in between. They just don't fit in with the environment. They have a different color scheme, and they just don't fit. There's a very good opportunity to use this style of the environment to create a very detailed game, very rich, especially on plot, specifically an RPG, but it would work fine for a top-down shooter as well. There's no reason it wouldn't. You might want to use a darker color scheme, of course. I'm just walking around here just to show off my point. I mean, I'm not doing anything specific. The monsters are all fairly silly, rather stupid, and the gameplay is not that great. But the gameplay is irrelevant to what I'm speaking of. The environments have a lot of potential, and it's virtually untapped. There's not a lot of shaders going on, if any at all. This is just geometry being rendered on screen with a texture on them. I don't even think that the tiles on the floor here have a bump map. Very, very, very low poly. I'm getting roughly on this on the 8800s. I'm actually getting somewhere in the thousands of FPS right now. That's a big deal. There's very good chance, and the settings aren't, they're on high. There's a very good chance of putting, take an Unreal Tournament for example, 2K4. The poly count on 2K4 was roughly, I would say, per model, I think it was 1800 polys. And it ran really, really well on older hardware. But this tree here, I'd be surprised if it has 300 polys. There's a lot of room for, increasing the poly count, not by creating objects with higher poly counts, but more objects themselves, creating much more rich environments. And that's something I really want to try. I actually have a game that I want to use this with one of the game engines I'm writing. Not using the White Wolf universe itself, but its basic playing style in terms of the way it does its stats for everything. It's a very, very unique style of game, and it puts more emphasis on the actual storytelling rather than the mechanics of fighting. Final Fantasy does this fairly well generally. Good examples are Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, not so much 9. But while the fighting is there, it's not an emphasis on the fighting other than aiding the storyline. The storylines are generally fairly battle oriented. They always have been. And they have it set up very well. The battle system in most of their Final Fantasy games and many other games, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, things like that, the battle system aids the storytelling rather than the storytelling aiding the battle system. You'll notice in a lot of games out there that are not so successful, it's all about the fighting. And the plot is usually fairly thin, and it usually feels like it's wrapped around the battle system in the game. That's why you're there. You're there to do battle. Of some sort. Depends on the game. That's good. That's great. They all fail and fall flat on their face. When you're looking at an RPG, you're looking for a good balance of the battle, the battling system, the fighting, your goals, and the storyline. This style of rendering has a lot of potential to aid the storytelling process with much better environments than we've ever seen before. While they don't look as good in terms of poly counts, you have the potential of such detailed scenes. I think it's a virtually untapped market. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up with that today. I know I've rambled on a bit with stuff that probably no one really gives a much about. But I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting. And hopefully someone might like this idea or run with it. Anyway, that should do it for today. Hopefully I'll have another of these little videos out next week. They're fairly quick to put together, save for this one as I've rambled on for 20 minutes. Anyway, I'll see you then.